We all knew that it would only be a matter of time until we were back on the podcast discussing which automaker has announced their plans to go with the North American charging standard. Welcome back to the Spec podcast. I'm your host, Francie. As you can tell, I have a different recording set up today. I've tried my best to make it as good as it can be, but thanks for bearing with me while I get through this quick story about Subaru announcing their plans to go NACS. You might be like, hey, it's not that big of a deal, right? It's just Subaru. They have one EV on the road, but it's just another signal that this is where the industry is going. It's not a question of if, but when automakers will come out with this news. So to cap off what they call the best month for the Subaru Solterra EV sales, Subaru has announced their plans to go NACS. This is 2 weeks following Toyota's announcement, who was their partner in the creation and manufacturing, producing the Subaru Solterra. And it is the cousin car, as it's lovingly referred to the Toyota BZ4X. Of course, they both had the same issue upon launch, which was with the wheels. The Toyota EVs were actually on the road by the time that the wheel issue was identified, whereas Subaru hadn't made deliveries yet. So those were able to be fixed before the Subaru Solterras actually got on the road. But it wasn't really a big splash with the Subaru Solterra. There's a bit left wanting. So hopefully in the future, with announcements like these, it points to Subaru really making a change in what they're going to be doing. I'm not sure who they're going to partner next, if it's still going to be with Toyota to manufacture their EVs, but some of this is just pretty unknown with Subaru so far. Either way, this is what the press release says. Subaru of North America Inc. today announced it was November 1st that its parent company, Subaru Corporation, reached an agreement with Tesla to adopt the North American charging standard for the charging ports of its battery electric vehicles to be launched in North America beginning in 2025. Of course, this provides customers with access to the extensive Tesla charging network. They specifically refer to gaining access to more than 15,000 Tesla superchargers. Now, I've seen a different number here and there, 12,000 before that I think, and maybe even 8,000 that I saw. And at first I thought, oh, this should be the same number for every automaker, but now I think that there might be some differentiation, but I'm not sure of the exact reasoning there, so I'm going to look into that, but will be interesting to see if there's actually any reasoning between these different press releases having different numbers for the number of superchargers that their customers gain access to across North America. Subaru, of course, frames this as a significant enhancement to the charging convenience for their customers, and that is generally how we're seeing this framed from automakers. This is an enhancement. It's a better offering. Whether they wanted to do it or not, they're making this change, and it does mean more access to reliable charging infrastructure. So I would say that that is a win. They also go on to say that under the new management structure established in June of 2023, Subaru has announced a goal of aiming for 50% of total global sales to be BEVs in 2030 to contribute to achieving carbon neutrality. 50% of their EVs. And they only have one EV on the market right now. So that definitely seems like there's a bit of a hurdle to overcome in terms of getting enough EV models out there to reach 50% of their sales as battery electric vehicles. So Subaru definitely has a lot of work to do. Some quick Subaru Solterra specs, just in case you've forgotten, and just to refresh on the one offering that Subaru does have in terms of their EV, is the Subaru Solterra. It is a 5-passenger 4-door, typical of Subaru setup here, except for, of course, that it's electric. It has an MSRP of around $46,000 US dollars. The EPA estimated range is around 220 miles on the 18-inch wheels, and it has a lithium-ion liquid-cooled battery that has 72.8 kilowatt hours within the EV. It has symmetrical all-wheel drive, something Subaru is certainly known for, and the front motor is a permanent magnet synchronous motor, and we find the exact same setup in the rear motor, of course. So this left a little bit wanting, as I kind of referred to in the beginning. It doesn't have the fastest charging speeds, and it's not the most impressive EV on the market, but there are some people who have adopted this EV into their lives. So Subaru sales. Subaru noted that they have 15 consecutive months of continued yearly month-over-month growth, and that is for all their offerings, so not just the Subaru Solterra. But in November, Solterra achieved its best ever month, so building upon 5 consecutive months of sales increases. So they're doing pretty well. Month over month, year over year, some increases we're seeing here for Subaru. They have reported 6,973 Solterras sold year to date in October of 2023. For context, this represents just over 1% of their total car sales year to date. So that is a very small percentage of the Subaru sold, and they have goals by 2030, so in 6 years, to hit 50%. Obviously, there's a lot of work to do. This makes me hope that Subaru has a lot of wonderful plans in terms of their electric lineup. But of course, we really haven't seen anything concrete. So where does NACS stand? Who has announced that they're moving towards NACS? In alphabetical order: BMW, Fisker, Ford, GM, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Jaguar, Mercedes, Nissan, Polestar, Rivian, Subaru, Tesla, Toyota, and Volvo have all announced, I say Tesla, but those are all of the EVs that are on or going NACS. So who's holding out? Well, that's Lucid, Mazda, Mitsubishi, Stellantis, VinFast, and VW Group. Of course, we can kind of maybe find some reasoning for why some of these automakers are still holding out. VW has clear ties to Electrify America. Perhaps they're working on the internal plan there first. Stellantis doesn't have a ton of EVs on the market in the US, so a North American charging standard maybe isn't their highest concern right now. But it definitely is a question of when and not if, or I would be surprised if an automaker does not go NACS. Of course, I think that anything is probably possible, so I won't count my chickens quite yet. Is that the saying? So Subaru has one EV option out there. That's the Subaru Solterra, but they did note earlier this year that they have a plan to have 3 more by the end of 2026. That's 3 more EVs on the market. And that's really all the details that we know. Besides that, they might be SUVs. They probably won't be built in the US, and they will be produced at a larger scale than the Solterra. But either way, we will have to wait and see about that. One question remains, and that is that who is going to switch to NACS yet? Of course, there's a bit of a consumer base that does wonder, should I wait to buy a NACS EV that's just fully equipped with NACS, native NACS on it, instead of CCS? And I think that a lot of people would agree that you don't need to wait. If you want to get an EV now, look at the options out there and see what fits your needs and go for it. Of course, it's still really expensive right now. There's range anxiety, but there's going to be adapters, aka the dongles for your EV, so that you're going to be able to charge no matter where you are. The infrastructure is coming along. CCS chargers and charging infrastructure will remain. I have a hard time believing that any local or federal government will just let those go completely to 0% in their state, considering how many millions of CCS EVs will be, are on the road. Thank you for tuning in to the Out of Spec podcast for this quick update on the most recent EV automaker to switch to NACS. We'll have to see who comes next. Thanks for bearing with this setup while we get everything in order while I'm on the road, and I'll be back to normal as soon as possible. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time on the Out of Spec podcast.